There we go. All right, does anybody want to give me their answer for number 1? Nobody? Oh, gosh. Okay, hopefully it's not because you don't know. All right, so how would I start this out? I need to look at my 2 coefficients. So 5 and negative 10, right? You pick the smaller one, which is 5. 5 obviously is a factor of itself. Is 5 a factor of negative 10? Survey says yes. So we divide by 5 for both of them because that is the largest common factor. All right, then we look at our variables. I have an x and an x squared. What is the most? How many x's can I take away from both of them? Can we let the miss in, please, at the back door? How many x's can I take away? 2? This one only has 1, though. So I can only take away 1. Hey, good morning. Do you have a pass? Okay. All right. And then I also have the variable y to the third, y to the second. What exponent am I going to divide by? Y to the second. Yes. You always look at the smallest number. Okay? So this is my greatest common factor, and I'm going to pull that out front. So 5xy to the second times, big parenthesis here, and then we divide. What is 5 divided by 5, class? 1. X divided by x is 1. 1. What? What's the matter? What did I miss? X divided by x is still 1, right? Okay. Y to the third divided by y squared. How many y's do I have left? 1. So that is 1y. Minus, we got to do a little division here. 10 divided by 5 is 2. X squared divided by x. Somebody over here, how many x's do I have left? Come on, people. 1. Because there's 2 there. Here's 1 here. 2 minus 1 is 1. And y squared divided by y squared simplifies out. That's times 1. And that's going to be the same. So final answer, 5xy squared times quantity 1y minus 2x. Anybody have that before I got to it? A few. Okay. We need to work on more than a few. All right. This is your chance to speak up. Okay. When I ask a question, I'm not asking it just to hear myself talk. I need you as a class to respond. Okay. If you know the answer, let's say it. All right. Okay. Hey, number 2. What do you notice about number 2? Yeah, it's got 4 terms. When you have 4 terms, we need to factor by grouping. So I need to divide this into 2 separate problems. So I'm going to look at the first 2 terms and find the greatest common factor and factor that out. So I've got a 2 and a 6. What's the greatest common factor of those 2 things right there? 2. Thank you. Okay, because 2 is a factor of 2, 2 is a factor of 6. I have x squared and x. What's the smallest number that I can take? Well, I guess it's the largest number that I can take from both. How many x's? Tristan? Not sure? All right. I've got x squared, which is 2. And I have x. So how many x's can I take from both? 1. So there's x there and x there. That is your greatest common factor. Pull that out in front and then put your big parentheses because now we need to divide. Okay? If you don't have a pencil in your hand writing this down, shame on you. We're going over this together. These are points. You need to be doing this, okay? So 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared divided by x. That's 2 x's. Divide out 1. I have 1 x left. Plus 6 divided by 2, class, is 3. And x divided by x simplifies out. So this is my factorization for the first 2 problems, okay? Let's look at the last 2. I almost hesitate to do this, but I think I might. Take a look at this. We know we want to try to get that same factor over here, right? Do I have that same factor over here already? Yes. Well, guess what? We're going to put x plus 3 right there because it's the same thing, right? So if I was to put this, what could I multiply this by here to make sure that this number times x plus 3 gives me x plus 3? It's got to be 1, right? So if what you're looking for happens to be what you have left, and you just bring that down, you just need to say plus 1 and multiply it times 1. Okay? Does that make sense a little bit? So that just saved you a whole bunch of time. But hey, now I have these same 2 factors. Why is that not going? Come on. Here, that is common to both of those terms, so I'm going to pull that out in front and say, hey, I have x plus 3. That is my greatest common factor between these 2. And what do I have left? I have this 2x plus 1. And that is your final answer. Okay? Hey, are you writing some of this down? Questions on 2. All right, let's go to number 3. What do you notice about number 3? Anyone? What? Grouping. 4 terms. 4 terms. When you see 4 terms, boom, you need to divide it into 2 and 2. All right? So let's take a look at the first 2 terms. 6 and 3. What is my greatest common factor between 6 and 3? Anyone? 3. You look at the smaller coefficient. If that divides into the other one, then that's your answer. If it's not, you go to the next highest factor. But in this case, 3 works. Then I look at x squared and x. This is an x to the first. How many x's can I take from both equally? Christiana? Excellent. That is x to the first and x to the first. I don't have any other variables, so this is my greatest common factor. Bring it out front. And big parenthesis, and now we divide. 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared divided by x to the first. You subtract your exponents, and you get x to the first. Plus 3 divided by 3 is 1. X divided by x simplifies to be 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. There's your factorization for the first 2. Are you okay, miss? What's your name again? Oh, no, in the back. No, you, right here, in the pink. What's Malaysia? Monasia. Are you okay? Do you have a pencil? You writing some of this down? Okay, just checking. All right, so 2x plus 1. Now, this is kind of similar. I've got a negative 2x minus 1, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it the regular way. So, coefficients, I've got negative 2, negative 1. Forget about the negatives. I've got 1. Is 1 a factor of 1? Yes. Is 1 a factor of 2? Yes. Okay. But I've got both of these as negatives. When they are both negative, you also have to factor out a negative. So let's take out that -1. This has an x, this doesn't have an x. So I cannot divide by an x that I don't have. Right, Jorn? Right. So this is my greatest common factor. I factor out the -1. What do I have left? I need to divide. -2 divided by -1 is 2. And x divided by, there's nothing to divide by, so that means I have the x. And -1 divided by -1 is, what is -1 divided by -1? 1. Yeah, anything divided by itself is 1. Oh, I hate that. Does anybody else of your teachers always have these extra little marks? Just say yes. No? Thank you. All right. So here I have the same common factor. Pull that out in front with those parentheses. Keep the parentheses on there. So 2x plus 1 is my greatest common factor. What do I have left? I have the factor in front, which is 3x, and the factor in front of my second one, which is -1. And there is your final answer. Any questions about that? Yes. Speak up. Where did I get the second, this thing right here? Is that what you're saying? Once I factor out what is common right here, I get the second parentheses from what is left, which was the 3x and the -1 right here. So it's kind of what you had left. And where did I get those values? Those values were my initial greatest common factors above. Okay? All right. Okay. Now, let's take out your homework, which was supposed to be due today. Homework number 1. All right. Seems like we might have a question. So, Charles, I'm guessing you have a question. 36. So, everybody take out your homework. Okay, where's 36? On the front page? Okay, so let's look at the directions first. This one says use distributive property to factor. So we are just factoring. Okay? All right. So everybody, if you don't have 36, everybody should get 36 correct. Okay? So first of all, I am going to underline my coefficients. I got 6, I got -21, and I have 24. Okay? Which coefficient do I look at when I start to look for the greatest common factor? The smallest one. What is the smallest one here? 6. So I look at 6 and I say, okay, 6 is obviously a factor of 6. Is 6 a factor of 21? No. So I can't use 6. It is a factor of 24, but we have all 3 here. So then, are we okay? So then, in my head, although if you want to write these down, you can, I think of what is my next largest factor of 6. And the answer there would be 3. And maybe you need to write down the factors of your smallest coefficient for a while. So then I look at 3. Is 3 a factor of 6? Yes. Is 3 a factor of 21? Yes. Is 3 a factor of 24? Yes. So that means I need to divide by 3, which is the second largest factor. Okay? So then I look at my variables. I have x squared. I have no x here and an x. Can I divide by an x if I don't have an x in all of my terms? Just say no. No, we cannot. And we've got a y. I've got a y squared, no y. Can I divide by a y then? No. Well, this one even has a w. And this one does too, but the first one doesn't. So what is my greatest common factor here? It is only 3. So the 3 is what comes out in front of the entire problem. And then we have to divide. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared y, there's nothing else to divide it by. So you just write those out. X squared y minus, what's 21 divided by 3? Just say 7. 7, thank you. And y squared w, there's nothing else to divide it by, so you write those out. Plus 24 divided by 3 is 8. And there's nothing else to divide by here, so I write down the x and w. Okay, now what? Nothing. We're done. You took out the greatest common factor. You factored the rest of it. We do not know how to factor the rest of it. We will find out later next week, but we don't know how to do this anymore. So that's all you can do for that problem. Okay? All right. Other questions on this paper? Other questions? 34. Now, did you really try 34? Tristan, did you really try it? Okay. I want a problem that you've actually really tried. I would love, did anybody have problems with like 12 on the back or 14? You didn't do the back. The back is grouping. Huh? It was homework too, but it was on the grouping. Did anybody have problems with 12, 14, 16 that tried it? Okay, here's the problem, guys. You've got to try the problems. I get that you got stuck, but everything on the back, except for what's at the very top, was all on grouping. Okay, you should have been able to do that. But I do want to do problem number 12 together. So everybody turn to the back. We're going to do 12 because they did something here that I was like, why'd they do that? So I'm going to go through this rather quickly because I still need to get to today's lesson. All right, so a squared minus 4a, coefficient, this would be a 1. So when I'm dividing, I've got a 1. I look at my variable, a squared and a. I should be able to take out 1a. So that is my greatest common factor, 1a out in front. And when I divide, 1 divided by 1 is 1. A squared divided by a, I should have 1a left. Minus 4 divided by 1 is 4. And a divided by a is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Okay? All right. So then I look at my second one. Look at the coefficients or the constant. I've got negative 24 and 6. 6 is the smallest. Is 6 a factor of 24? Yes. So I can divide by 6. Here's an a, but there's no a over here. So 6, a positive 6, is going to be my greatest common factor. So negative 24 divided by 6 is negative 4 plus 6, I don't need that circle there. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and a divided by 1 is a, where I don't have anything to divide it by, so it's a. So I'm like, wait a minute. These do not look exactly the same, Miss Thede. You're right. They aren't exactly the same. However, you have a negative 4 plus 1a. That is the same as 1a minus 4. So it is the same thing, okay? So that means you would take this amount and maybe just rewrite it either above or below as 1a minus 4. So you see that it looks the same. And then pull that out front. 1a minus 4. Okay, so that takes care of this and this. And what do I have left? I have 1a plus 6. So I thought that's what you were going to ask about, how those second parts weren't exactly the same. But you can make them be the same.
Isn't it supposed to be 1A, 1? Because
1a1?
like,
Oh, a to the first here? It can, but a to the first is same as just a.
oh,
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right, though. You can put an a to the first there. Okay? All right, we have to move on. If you have not done 3/4 of this homework, you need to keep it until Monday. It won't be counted late, but you're going to have some other homework also on top of that. Did you have a quick question? I can't hear you. What if you just put A? That's fine. All right. So let's take out our notes. And this, to be honest, is probably for some of you going to be a difficult lesson. So I really need you to focus in, okay? All right. So it says review, but I don't know that we ever did this. All right. I know, right? Okay. So I want you, we're going to be making some of these X's, and these X's are already at the top of your page 7. Okay? This is 11.6, factoring quadratic trinomials. Trinomials means what? How many terms? 3 terms. And a quadratic means that the degree of it is going to be to the second power. So you're going to have something that looks like this, okay? 3 terms, and the degree is to a second power, okay? So multiply. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you 36. So we're going to put 36 up here, and I'm going to put multiply to give you 36, and they add to give you 13. Girls, shh. So think of 2 factors. 2 factors that multiply to give you 36, but when you add them together, you get 13. Can anybody think of what those factors would be? How about 1 and 36? Does that work? Is 1 plus 36 give you 13? No. So then you have 2 and 18. Does that add up to 13? Yes? No? Come on, people. 2 and 18. Does that add to give you 13? No. 3 and... What's the other factor with 3? 3 and... 12. 3 plus 12, does that add to 13? No. 4 and 9. Does that add up to 13? Yes. Now, if you had difficulty doing that, you are going to need to have a calculator next to you for all of next week. Okay? Don't be going over to get it now. We don't have time right now. Okay? This is going to be important to us that you're going to have to figure out what 2 numbers multiply to give you one answer and add to give you another. Over on the other side, we need to multiply to make negative 27. What does that tell you about one of your factors already? If the answer is negative 27, one of your factors has to be negative. Thank you. And we have to add those 2 numbers, and they are going to give you negative 6. What is it? So they have to add to give negative 6, multiply to give negative 27. Don't worry about initially when you're trying to think. Think 1 and 27. 2 is 2 a factor of 27. No, 3 and 9. 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's it. So which of these is going to add up to be negative 9? Well, it looks like this. And which one is going to have the negative on it? The negative 9. What?
Instead of negative 6, you accidentally just said negative.
Oh, sorry. Okay, but you knew what I meant. So negative 9 plus 3 gives you negative 6. Okay? All right, so everybody got those written down. So factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient of 1. Okay. So let's see. To factor trinomials in the form x squared plus bx plus c, find two integers, m and p, with a sum of b and a product of c. That's kind of what we were just talking about. So this is important. These are the very initial steps to factoring. First of all, when it says to factor, you initially need to look for a greatest common factor. You already knew that, but we're just rewriting it again. Greatest common factor. Otherwise known as a GCF. Second, you need to check for a difference of perfect squares. And we're going to talk about that in the future because that's a little bit more complicated. 3, shoot, and I forget how they did this. What do they call this? Let's skip 3 for a minute just because I don't know the exact wording that they're looking for there. Okay? But you are going to create this box like we had here before. Okay? So, given a polynomial ax squared plus bx plus c, the two things that you are going to multiply are going to be the a in front, whatever that coefficient is, and for now it's just going to be 1, and the constant at the back. So this is going to be 1, and this is going to be a constant. So you are going to get an expression like this, and you need to multiply a times c and put that in the top part of your x. And the middle part, b, is what the two numbers add together to get. Okay? All right, so let's go to the top of the next page. We need to factor x squared minus 9x plus 18. First of all, we need to look for a GCF. Do I have a greatest common factor for all of these? Well, let's see. I have a coefficient of 1, negative 9, and 18. So for the coefficients, it's just going to be 1. For my x squared, I have an x squared, an x, and no x. So that means my greatest common factor here is 1. Is that really something I can factor out? No. So if your GCF is just 1, then you go to the next step. Okay? Because there's really nothing that you are factoring out. So number 2 is using, and I wish I could remember what this is called. Oh, I know. We call it X box. 2 is actually a difference of perfect squares, but we don't know that. And 3 is X box. That's what we call it. I had to think a little bit. So you are going to multiply A times C at the top, and you are going to look for the B value and put it in the bottom. Tristan, I really need you to pay attention here. All right. The A is the coefficient in front of the x squared. So that's going to be a 1. Your C is the constant. C is the constant, so that is 18. Your B value is the middle term, the coefficient of the middle term. So that's negative 9. So now I am trying to think of two factors that multiply to give you 18 and add to give you negative 9. Now, if they are going to add to give you a negative number, that means, Miss Bolton, stop it. That means that at least one of them is going to be negative. But the fact that when you multiply the numbers together, that means they're both going to be negative because you ended up with a positive. So factors of 18, maybe we write them down for a bit. Okay, so we got 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6, 4 doesn't work, 5, and then we're back to 6. So can you put two of these factors together that are going to add to give you negative 9? And somebody already said it. 6 and 3. It's going to be a negative 3. Let's do it in a different color. And a negative 6. Okay? Negative 3 and a negative 6. All right, so then we do the box like this. Okay? And you are going to put x squared, which is the first term, up here. Your first term in the first box. Is everybody with me? First term, first box. Last term goes in the last box. And that is plus 18? Yes. Now, right here in these middle two, this is what adds up to be your B. It's actually these numbers themselves. That's why we are using this X box formula. So because they have to add up to be the middle term, which is an X term, I am going to put negative 3X and negative 6X. Okay? Negative 3X and negative 6X. No, and you could put negative 3X up in the top one and you could put negative 6X in the bottom one. Doesn't matter. So then you are looking at each row and you are saying, let's do and find the greatest common factor. So when you have a 1x squared and a negative 6x, okay, there's a 1 in front of here and a 6. The greatest common factor there is going to be 1. Here you have an x squared and an x. How many x's can you divide out? 1. So that's 1x. Then you come down to the second row. You have a negative 3x and an 18. Forget about the negative for a minute. You've got 3. Is 3 a factor of 18? Yes. So because this is negative right here on the outside of this part, because this is where we're going to be putting our factors, you also have to factor out that negative 3. Okay? I know this is a lot. All right, then we look at the column. We look at the column this way and say, what is my greatest common factor for those two? You've got a 1 and a negative 3. Well, it's got to be a 1 because 1 is a factor of everything. You've got an x squared and an x. So how many x's can you factor out? 1. Okay. And then you have a negative 6 and 18. So look at the 6 first. 6 is a factor of 6. 6 is also a factor of 18. So we factor out the 6, but because this negative is here, we also have to factor out the negative. So what does this mean? This means your factors are these two things. which is 1x minus 3 and 1x minus 6. Okay? That's a lot of work for one problem. And it will come quicker the more that you do these. Okay? All right, let's go to the second one. Here it says C is negative and B is positive. Okay, first of all, it says to factor. You have to look first, do I have a greatest common factor other than 1? Well, if this is a 1 in front, then the greatest common factor there is 1. I don't have an x at the end, so I don't have a greatest common factor. 2 is going to be a difference of squares, but we don't know how to do that yet. We'll talk about that next week. 3 is what we call the x box. So you draw an x. You want A times C at the top and B at the bottom. Your A, this is in standard form, which I don't think I said before. A is 1. 1 times your C value, your constant, is negative 14. Your B value, because this is ax squared plus bx plus c, or minus c, your B value is 5. So you are looking for two factors that multiply to give you negative 14 and add to give you 5. 7 and 2. Which one is going to have the negative? The 2, right. The 7 has to be positive because your B value is positive. The larger of the two has to be positive. So we're going to say 7 and 2. Okay? So we do this box. You put the first term in the first box. That is x squared. You put the last term in the last box, negative 14. And you put these two values that we just found in the two other values with an x. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot to put the negative on the 2, right? 7 plus negative 2 is 5. So I'm going to say 7x and negative 2x. And after a while, you will get to see these pretty quickly. Okay? So I need to find the greatest common factor. X squared minus 2x is going to be an x. 7x minus 14. 7 is a factor of 7. 7's a factor of 14. So that's going to be a positive 7. Going up, x squared and 7x. That's going to be an x. Negative 2x and negative 14. What's the greatest common factor there going to be? Who said that? Negative 2. You're right. It is 2, and because of this negative, it's going to come right up here. So these are your two factors that are factors down to, and yes, you do need to rewrite them as x minus 2 and x plus 7. Okay? All right, let me take a look here. Okay, so we did not get as far as I would have liked. Hang on. I'm guessing most of you don't have this homework that was due today done. If you do, please turn it in on your way out. If you don't, get it done over the weekend, okay? Did everybody hear what I said? Make sure you get that done over the weekend, okay? All right, quick question. Did you have a question, Jeremiah, sorry. A specific question about this? About this? Come on up. Yeah.
that part, like the top, is it always gonna be like this right there?
Is it always? It is when a is equal to 1. Why, have you already seen something? Not always, always.